Hello and welcome to the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis, and today I'm very grateful and very humbled to be joined by Jess Popplestone. Not many people will know who Jess is, but after today, they'll get a great perspective and a great understanding of who Jess is and what she does. I'll give you a quick spiel. Jess is former teacher for about 8 years. She now assists homeschoolers Australia-wide, or is about to. She's a mum and she does some other cool stuff. And we've connected through the documentary that I'm putting together called Education what do I call it? The Burden and Baggage Education Unpacked. If anyone is interested in featuring on that documentary, please reach out to me. Everything to reach out to me and or Jess is will be in the show notes. So Jess, welcome to my show today. This is going to be a very interesting conversation because I get very passionate about the school system, and you do as well. So this could be passionate, could be raw, who knows? But Jess, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to have a chat.
Yeah, same. So Jess, tell me about your story and how you founded what's it called? Homeschool Assist, and
Yep.
where you want to take it, where you may have it, what your future vision is, but also how you got to this place as well. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. There's a lot there. Probably could just talk about an hour answering those questions.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. So, well, why homeschooling? Like, I'm pretty passionate about homeschooling now. I think there's a few reasons why. But if I had to think about like my top reasons why I'm passionate about homeschooling, and I say I'm passionate about homeschooling as a mum who hasn't yet started my own homeschooling journey, but I've definitely learned a lot about it the last 4 or 5 years as I've supported homeschoolers ever since that COVID period where we started Homeschool Assist. So for me, like, and you just talked about it, like as a teacher, you see the system and how broke it is. That's a big part of why I want to homeschool my kids. And putting my kids at a desk for 6 hours a day just sounds like child abuse. If you knew my boys, you would probably agree as well. They love to move and they're very energetic. They're not going to be kids that will, so far they're only like 2 and 4, so it's hard to really say, but I can imagine that they would be pretty quickly, especially the 4-year-old, be told that he has ADD and he can't sit still and he's too hyperactive. So I want to, protect him from that. But also, just as a teacher, I think so much is wrong. There's so many things we could talk about that's wrong with the system. But I think the COVID period really helped me realize, like wake up a bit, as it has with a lot of people, to exactly how brainwashed our society is, how there's such a lack of critical thinking. I was a history teacher and I love history. It's like my passion. I love it. And spent years trying to help kids understand, how dictators and authoritative rulers can do awful things to groups of people, like genocidal, like just horrible things, right? And I would be like trying to get them to understand, how can this happen? And it wasn't until COVID that I actually, as a history teacher, really understood how horrible things can happen in society and how people can go along and be led by fear, and be, just not think critically and become like mini dictators themselves. And so we saw that a lot through COVID, right? This lack of critical thinking, sheep. Like looking at the world, I'm like, I don't want my children to be, and I'm not blaming the school system for that entirely, but I don't want my kids to just go along with everything and believe everything they hear. I want them to be questioners. So it really took my husband and I through a bit of a journey of like questioning, what are our values? What do we believe in? What do we want for our family? And I think that's actually the essence of what homeschooling is for me. It's like coming back to you and your unique family's values and what you perceive to be true and right for you. What is it? Why is it important to you? And if you can ask those questions and look at it in a really honest way, then you might decide that homeschooling's for you as well. You might decide that the school system's fine, and that's fine. And I know that homeschooling and alternative education doesn't actually work for all families. And I don't judge friends who have careers and they just can't homeschool their kids. I get that. I know that's not an option for everyone, but looking at the values of what we value, what we want for our kids, we just started to realize that actually the world is bigger than just putting our kids in a school system for 6 hours a day where they're told what to learn, when to learn it, how to learn it. And yeah, I think it just took us on a bit of a journey, if that makes sense, of really questioning our own values. And I recently did a bit of a mini series podcast with a friend, and we talked about it's called Igniting Your Homeschooling Journey. Look it up.
Yep.
And she's my bit of a mentor, a coach for me as a homeschooler. And we actually unpack this idea of values and what it means to have that as your foundation when you homeschool. If things like, for example, creative thinking and critical thinking is big for me. I'm like, I want my kids to be questioners. I don't want them to necessarily do the right thing and get all the awards at school. And as a teacher, I saw kids at the end of year 12 who were considered the ducks or got the best score. Were they actually well-rounded, good people who could think for themselves? A lot of the time they could just regurgitate a textbook really well, literally back at you, a scientific textbook, and they might get a high score and go and do medicine and be in another system where they're told what to think and they don't think critically. I'm like, what is it that I want for my kids? Do I want them to get a really good score at the end of year 12? Or do I want them to do what they're passionate about and what they're good at and to think outside the box? So COVID, massive thing for us, took us on a lot, a big journey about looking at our values. We want adventure. We're an adventurous family. We love spontaneity. We love going on trips. I also at the same time really love the idea of having kids who are responsible and disciplined and really respectful. So that's really important for me too. So yeah, just thinking about our own values was a big thing. And then, as you said, like coming from a system that we know is pretty broke, most schools don't really help kids thrive. They completely stifle the love of learning. I feel like you spend like a day with a toddler and you realize that they actually want to learn so much. They are natural learners. They literally you can't walk 20 meters without them stopping to look at something on the ground or noticing a flower. They're so curious. They're so filled with wonder. I'm like, I want my kids to be like that always. I don't want to send them to school. And I'm not saying school always will stamp that out, but following that kind of natural learning, that's how I think learning should be. Following that natural curiosity and going deep with it instead of being told what to learn and where and when. So yeah, I think a few things. I don't like the broken system. Look, let's be honest. The school was created in the 1800s to churn out workers. I'm like, what's the school system? What's its goal at the moment? I don't think it's changed much. I think the school system wants to just see us churn out compliant workers who will listen to what they're told and will go along and do well at their jobs. Yeah. And I just think like I want a better way for my kids. So that's why I want to homeschool. I also started Homeschool Assist at a time when a lot of people were taking their kids out of school and not knowing where to start. So that's where that need started for me. I was like, I'm going to help my friends do this because the government in Australia, as we all know, make it pretty hard for homeschoolers to register, to get accredited, to get the tick of approval, to keep people off your back, the truancy officers that, might run after you if your kid's not in school and that kind of thing. So helping them navigate that and get through, tick the boxes in a sense to be able to homeschool has been really become my passion, because the curriculum is great for a lot of kids, but a lot of kids are bored by it and they don't want to learn what they're told to learn. So tapping into their natural curiosities and finding a way that we can actually support them to learn about what they want to learn about, but still be accredited for that or be allowed to do that has been like a bit of a puzzle for me a lot of the time, but become a bit of a passion as well. So I love it. And I've seen it done really well through Homeschool Assist. I've seen lots of families thrive with their homeschooling journey. I don't see many that don't thrive, actually. I think it's one of those things that a lot of people say, oh my gosh, I could never. Or it's like being on a cliff and you're like, I don't want to take the leap. I know it's right, but it just seems like too much. And then every family that I've known that's done it has never regretted it from that moment. So it's pretty cool.
Pretty special. I love that. I just want to circle back to you being a history teacher and then having your whole history just at the start of 2020 going, well, everything that I've learned about history is a lie. How did that?
So interesting. So sorry, I've I said a lot in that first part.
That's all right. It's all
So
good.
feel free to just like call me out and be like, what about this? Yeah.
Nah, the history
So,
part, I want to delve into that.
well, yeah. Like, it was a bit of a, like, I feel like I'm still learning.
Mm.
I'm still learning about how way that like we've been told things have happened in the past, and there's such an agenda there. It's so interesting, and I feel like I'm still on my journey with that for sure. But I think COVID really was helped me see like to what extent. Like I'd taught year 10 students about the Holocaust and how terrible that these things have happened, and you know how we need to stand up for the people in society that are the minority and things like that. But then when it came to the crunch, like I think maybe 5 or 10% of my friends didn't do what the government told them to do back in 2020 or 2021, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
You know, and like even things like the way that people were treating each other. Like, how does that happen? That is how it happens. I think I really love Jordan Peterson. Don't know if you know him.
I do, yeah.
But he talks a bit about that. He has a whole like lecture or speech about how we would have all been Nazis, and people can be really offended by that. I'm like, isn't that interesting that actually if you were a German in the 40s, that was you. You were doing those things. And there was only a very few amount of people who had integrity to stand up for what's right. COVID just proved that to me to be true.
100%.
Yeah, but then then you talk about history just generally, how it's taught, and the things that are not in the textbooks. Geez, we could go into some rabbit holes, couldn't we?
Yeah, we could, but we probably won't go there because people know about them. They should know about them by now. And if you don't, well, you're not going to be here much longer, unfortunately. Homeschooling. So yeah, it does get a bad rap, especially out there with the
Yeah,
everyday Joe, and that's done on purpose as well.
totally. It's like a stigma about it, isn't it? There's a
Yeah.
stigma about it. I think it's slowly changing. Maybe it's just in the circle of people I talk to, but people are more open. I remember it used to be really weird. I used to think it was weird. I'm like, people are a bit cuckoo. But the more I've seen it, it's just becoming, as people are becoming more aware in their lives and questioning things, I think this is just a natural result. People are going to start going, oh, okay, like even just the medical system and machine, you know, the media machine, you start to realize all these things are machines. They run on profit, money, power. And when you start looking into that and realizing the things that are going on in our world, education is one of those machines. It's another part of our society that just ticks over and does what it's told and is part of the system. And yeah, to go outside of that, I think it's becoming less weird. I think it's becoming less weird as people become more aware. I think it helps with podcasters like you and podcasters who are independent of the machine, bringing these things to light. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. But yeah, it's an interesting thing because I know when I was a kid, there wasn't many, this is only about, 12, 13 years ago, there wasn't many, like in my area, like I didn't know anyone that was actually doing it. But then from post probably 2018, 19, like every
you reckon it was that
third
early?
or fourth, yeah, I started to work. I was still doing placements and different things at uni. And I started noticing, there's a few, like I'd walk into a classroom and a kid would just be taken off the roll. And it's like, what's that kid doing? Oh, he's being homeschooled now. I'm like, it's
that early, you think?
I mean, yeah, I reckon it started coming in around 17, 18, 19. And then when 2020 happened, it was just this massive, like everyone just started ripping their kids out.
Yeah.
Not everyone,
That's
but
why,
every second or third family was doing it.
and that's why I started Homeschool Assist, because so many of my friends were like, where do I start? How do I get approved? How do I read the curriculum?
And let's talk about that process. So if there's a family out there right now, Jess, how would one go about homeschooling their kids? Because there's so many, you could say, hurdles or loopholes to go through, which I wasn't aware of until I started looking into it either.
Yeah. I think it depends on what state you're in. I know I'm pretty all over all of the states' registration processes now, so I know what each state is looking for. So we can help with that registration, like getting the tick of approval to begin with. But I think some of the barriers to homeschooling, like of course finances, if you need one of your parents to be working, if you need both parents to be working, that can make it really hard. But I do have families where that happens and they have a teacher that comes in and helps them and supports them to do that. I actually have a family who the parents are like a power couple, and they're both CEOs of companies and they work long hours, but we homeschool their kids. We help them do that. It's, when they started, they were like, how are we going to make this happen? Like, we need school in a way to take our kids from us for 8 hours a day so we can function. But now that they're doing it with us, it's pretty awesome to watch how they can flexibly fit everything around. Like, the kids go to work with them. They're part of the process. They have a teacher that comes in the afternoon. They have a teacher that comes to the house in the morning. So it's all very, it works for their family. They love it. They're like, we would never do the school thing because it works for us. And I think that's the key. Like, every family's so different and what you need is so different. And so I just am passionate about helping families find it to work for them. So some families will just want us to plan for their week, and mum will want to, or dad, but I don't think I have any dads that homeschool full time, just mainly mums. But we help them plan for the week. So we'll do like their curriculum and the thinking around what they want to learn, but making it so that it's fitting in with the curriculum. So that's like, it really ranges. We have teachers that actually go and teach kids, or we have teachers that go in and teach kids, or we have teachers that plan for parents and do the thinking for the teaching behind it, if that makes sense. So it's really diverse. No family's the same, what they want. I have a lot of traveling families who want to learn about or help their kids engage with what they're going to be learning about at particular places that they'll be. So our teachers will actually bring all of the project back to where they will be. So it's very tailored in that sense and very niche. And that's the thing with Homeschool Assist. Like, you can go and buy lots of generic programs. There are awesome curriculums out there that you can buy and download, like generic curriculums. But ours is very much like, if you want your kids to have a more tailored experience, where it's like they're learning about, for example, I have a boy who's obsessed with marine life. He's a nerd about it. And at the moment they're doing projects all based around marine life, but we're bringing English into it. We're bringing maths into it. We're bringing those scientific skills, humanities, but he wouldn't call it, I'm doing my science time now or my English time now. It's just naturally a part of the project. You're covering all those curriculum areas. You're getting the ticks saying that we're doing it, but he's just going deep in marine life, and it's pretty awesome.
That's what the school system doesn't do.
Yeah,
it's so structured in one way. Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
and I know for me, I found all that shit boring, and I just wanted to do footy and cricket and sports. It's like you can incorporate that in there as well as marine life. It's about finding. Totally. I love it how you're finding what the kid's interested in, and then tailoring that curriculum to that specific area. That's the key.
And we base it on 3 things: what they're curious in, what they actually need to develop in. So like, what do they need to be challenged in? So if they can't read yet, how are we going to make that happen?
Yeah.
So their needs, but also their goals for their learning. So we take those 3 things and then we create projects around those 3 needs. And I think it's been really popular because, parents, like, it's almost like they say to me things like, oh, my kid doesn't even know he's learning. Like, he does. And that's how it should be. They shouldn't know that they're at school now. Like, it's just such a natural way to learn. It's so good if you can do it right. And that's the thing. Homeschool Assist, we support people to do that well, because, I'm sure you could do it really poorly if you're not sure how to do that. But we have awesome teachers that are very creative and can think about how to pull bits of the curriculum into what kids are interested in.
So if there's a family out there listening to this right now, can they get in contact with you and you can help them through the process? Awesome.
Yep. That's what we do. There's so many different things we do. Sometimes we just plan like an overview for the whole year for family. I have a few families, they do that at the start of every year. We give them an overview with project ideas based on what their kids are into at the moment, based on what their needs were last year, how did they go? And then parents will take that, or we might plan for them every week. Like, it just totally depends what they want to do. Yeah. And how much they want to be involved. And then, as I said, we have teachers that actually go into homes and do it. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool how diverse it is.
Yeah, I got another question for you. So if you've got a family that are pretty aware of things, and you got a family that's pretty, we'll say spiritual, do you have
Yep.
anything to help that child nurture those spiritual gifts, like talking about dreams, talking about some weird and wacky, wonderful things that happen to most children, but they're too scared in that system to go and tell someone the way I used to be, that I used to have these
Yeah.
things happen to me, and I kept it quiet for a long time because I didn't feel like anyone believed me. I'm just asking
Sure.
purely because there might be some families that are super off grid, that are spiritual and whatever, and are nurturing
Yeah.
their child's soul development. Is there anything in there in terms of that stuff as well? So I feel like that's pretty important too.
Yeah. I think it depends on the family. Like I always gauge what the family needs and what they want. And there's this really magical, you could say divine, I believe in God, you could call it the universe, the energy that really, like, this is the thing, it's been crazy through my Homeschool Assist journey. I'll find a family who needs particular things. Maybe they're Christian, or maybe they're Jewish, or maybe they have beliefs about what you're saying about like dreams and things like that. And they want someone who's going to help fuel that. And this thing happened where I always just recruiting teachers find the right people where they just fit. Like it happens all the time with Homeschool Assist. I just say it's a spiritual thing that happens because I give it over and I'm like, God, you know that I need a teacher who can do this. And the right family, the amount of connections we've created, it's just been like a divine thing. I can't explain it any other way. So if a family wants a particular thing, I'll be like, okay, let's find it for you. Let's find that person that's going to be on your page with this, or, and especially with the COVID thing, a lot of families like, look, I really want to support a teacher who has integrity, who has quit their job because they didn't want to get vaccinated or whatever. Am I going to get you banned on YouTube?
Nope.
Sorry. So, like I've had the joy of like marrying those teachers and families together. And it's like a relationship that's just, I can think of like about 4 or 5 examples just off the top of my head right now of families that are like, oh my gosh, we found our person.
That's awesome.
Like it's just happened that way. So I think if something like that is important to a family, we'll just make it happen. We'll find the right person for you. I just trust it will happen.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's
So if
pretty
there's
cool.
someone out there listening to this, get in contact with Jess. Her details will be in the bottom of this. That's awesome
Yep.
what you're doing. That's fantastic that you're sort of allowing
Yeah.
that divine intervention to take its place. That's awesome.
I do. Yeah. I believe that like a part of it, and it's so much less stressful living that way too for me. I'm like, oh, I just really want to find a teacher that's the right fit for this family. Like I don't struggle. I don't strive. I just let it happen. And it does. It really does.
That's
It's
so
pretty cool.
cool. Is there
Yeah.
anything else you want to share today, Jess, that's on your mind?
Well, I think like I was thinking about this and I think there's a lot of like, as you were saying, there's a bit of stigma around homeschooling in general. And I would just encourage people to think about what you want out of your lifestyle and your life and your kids' lives. And, like one big thing I'm a big fan of is this idea of family rhythms. Like, what do you want the rhythm of your family to be? What do you want it to be? And I constantly see friends who take their kids to school every day and they're struggling to get them dressed, get them in the car, get their lunches together, get out the door by 9 a.m. and then picking them up at 3:30. And we've got to do this, this, and this homework. Then we've got to do bath. And then we've got to, do dinner. And then there's a tantrum and then there's issues. And like, I don't know. I think people have in their head that homeschooling is like, oh no, I'm going to be around my kids like all day, every day. Like kill me. Like I can't do it. I need me time. But I just keep noticing that homeschoolers just generally have this rhythm in the day. It's just a little more like there's room to breathe, right? And I'm not saying that that's true for every homeschooler. I'm sure there are homeschoolers out there that are stressed about getting to certain things on time. But I think we've got this idea in society. It's like we need to deconstruct our minds about what school and what the rhythms of life should be like and what they, even the work day, 9 till 5 work day, that we could talk about that too, right? That's a rhythm that I'm like, we need to look at that and question it. Why is it like that? And what works for your family? So even though homeschooling can sound like a lot and it's like you're with your kids all day, every day, there are so many examples I just keep seeing of like families who are like stressed out of their mind, and homeschooling actually the rhythm of slowing down and taking things a little with a bit more room to breathe. Like let's have some room to breathe. Let's give ourselves permission to have some margins in our lives and take things slow. Actually, I've I've seen so many families that are like, actually, this is a way less stressful way to live, way less stressful compared to like trying to get my kids to school and then picking them up. And then what often happens is you have to deal with all the issues in a couple of hours instead of having them spread out throughout the whole day, where they become like more little issues. They're not as big. There's not as explosive in that couple of hours between dinner and bed, if that makes sense. So yeah, I just was like really encouraged by that, because I think there's a big stigma around homeschooling when it comes to the idea that I need me time and my family wouldn't be able to do it because it's just too intense. But I look at the way that school happens, and I think it can be so intense. It can be so intense for families. So look at what you want from your life and think about your own family rhythm and how it can be supported through this idea of alternative education. And maybe for you, it means going to school for a couple of hours a day, but then doing homeschooling for the rest of the day. Like mix it up a bit. There's so many ways you can do it. So there's no one fit for all.
No, but then it's also that like that system it's an element of control. You know, we can go down a rabbit hole, but it's pretty much that you drop your kids off to be raised by someone else. Like
Oh
that
yeah,
system
for
is
sure.
raising your children, and they're there longer during the day as well. You got before and after school care. You got these
Yeah.
daycare centers that are open beyond 6 o'clock. It's like
Yeah.
that system is raising your child to be
Isn't it
a
crazy?
a compliant, obedient, order following robot,
Yeah,
to
totally.
not think with
My boy
themselves and
came
to
home from
not think
kinder.
outside the box.
My boy came home from kinder last night and said something, and I won't repeat it, but it's very much indoctrination, in my opinion. And I was like, okay, this is happening at kinder level. Like I was already not sure about the whole kinder thing. And I'm like, it's happening at 3 years of age. Like someone else is getting in the mind of my child. I'm not comfortable with it. And it's a chat we're going to talk about whether we do kinder next year, because I'm like, oh, at this age that's happening. Like someone else is putting their values into my child. Don't know how I feel about it
Yeah,
right now.
see, and that's the
Um,
conversation that a lot of people are having is
yeah,
they're raising your children. So it's someone
yeah,
else. You're handing your children away to be raised by someone else.
yeah, I know.
So
Like
the
it's,
kids are, so I see it as the kids are coming home. They're being told by mum and dad to do things. They're being told by the teacher to do other things. The kid actually is probably all messed up in terms of what is right and what is wrong. They have the teacher's perception, they have mum and dad's perception, they have the family's perception. It's like, how does a child be a child these days when they're at
uh,
6:30 in the morning to six o'clock at night, and then
yeah,
mum and dad get them for a couple of hours a night, and then it's the same thing
everyone's
again.
exhausted.
Yeah, and it's like,
Yeah.
how does little Joey go about his day knowing right from wrong when Mrs.
Mm.
Crabtree's telling him something else, and the parents at home are telling him that completely different? Like,
I think I've seen
where are we at?
a lot of families we've helped, the kids have had trauma, and it might not necessarily be diagnosed trauma. Some of it is, but trauma from that school experience for that reason, I think, because their minds are like constantly it's almost like constantly being in fight or flight. Like
Correct.
your neurological system, your sympathetic nervous system is never at a state of like calm. You're just always, I've probably said the wrong word. I'm not a scientist.
No, it doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah,
After
but
the
your
last 4
neuron,
years, I think we're all scientists now.
yeah, we all know. Trust the science.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, yeah, just being in that constant state of like not knowing where, I've seen so much trauma and I've seen so many kids come out of it. And now that they're doing it a different way, it's like parents like, oh, I didn't even really realize how good it could be for my child's
Mm.
mental health. Yeah, being away
And
from
that's
that.
important.
Yeah, it's
Then we
so
got to about
important.
physical health. So are
Yeah.
you educating these families and children about diet, about reading the labels of the supermarket food because there's full of
Oh, I
toxins in
love
there?
that.
You're basically being fed ADHD in a box if you're eating that crap. So are we doing
Yeah.
some alternative physical sort of, well, read the
Well,
food labels, kids, because if you read them, you're like, what's wrong with you is what you're eating and drinking. Are we doing
yes.
that too?
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of my families love baking, and that's a
Awesome.
good place to start. Or shopping, like it's such a good way to learn. Like you're learning real life skills, right? How to
Yes.
budget, how to go shopping, how to read food labels, what's in our food, what are we cooking, what are we putting to our body, what does it do to our body? Like there's so much learning that can happen, and they're things that we do 3 times a day, right? We all go shopping, we all need food to fuel us. So like looking for opportunities to show kids things like that in everyday life, so powerful. So, so powerful. So many of the projects we help with kids is like, mum will be like, we want to bake more. We love baking. And it's like, okay, we can cover mathematics. We can cover literacy. We can cover health. We can cover health and PE in that. There's so much that you can tick off in the curriculum. And I talk about that a lot because the government care about that, right? You need to prove that you're ticking things off, but there is so much that you can learn just from doing food things, for sure. Gardening, growing our own vegetables. There's so much you can do in those everyday tasks to teach your kids.
Yeah, and they're learning so much more doing all of that than learning about parallelograms in school.
100%.
When you turn 40 or when you come out of school, you're not going to need a parallelogram. You're going to need life skills. And
No.
that's something else that's a passion of mine too. And I talk about a lot,
Mm.
bringing back the life skills into not really into our systems, but into these alternative systems, is allowing these kids to actually grow up and be a fully functioning adult.
Exactly. Like the amount of kids at school who wouldn't know how to like fry an egg or
Yeah.
how to read what's on their labels and what's going into their body. They just don't think. Kids don't think.
No, because they're being like the thinking's being done for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I've been listening to this. Have you heard of Callie and Casey Means? Have you checked them out yet?
No, I haven't, but maybe I should.
Oh, amazing. I mean, they're American, but she was a doctor, like surgeon, I think. She was about to become a surgeon and she just quit at Stanford, top of
Yep.
her class, and then decided to quit. She's like, doctors are not helping their patients. They're just, there's no prevention.
No.
So she got so over it. She was like, nah, we're actually, if you're going to be a doctor, you're just compliant in this system that makes people sick and profits off sickness. You don't actually want people to be healthy.
But our kids
So
need to learn that too.
Yeah. And I'm like, our kids also like, and this might be a little bit off track, but even the way that she was like at the height of her, like the top of her class in Stanford and then ended up quitting, like, how much integrity do you have to have?
Yeah.
You have to really not care about money and status. And she just gave it all away because she's like, the system's so corrupt.
Yeah,
Like,
selling
I want my
your
kids to be
soul.
like that. Talking about teaching our kids, I'm like, I don't really care what they do and don't know. For me, like the character, like I just want my kids to come out and have good character. Character for me is everything. It's
Unfortunately,
everything.
you're not going to get the morals and moral, ethical, fully functioning adults. Unfortunately, not inside that system.
Yeah. And like some schools might do it really well. Let's be honest. Like some schools might. But for me, I'm like, I just want my kids to have like character and I want to teach them good character. And I think our kids, the thing is that they're actually watching what we do more than what we say.
Mm-hmm.
And so my life is my teach, if that makes sense. I'm teaching my kids every day with the way I react to people in the car when they piss me off. I'm teaching kids, the way that I respond to situations. Like that character stuff.
conscious parenting.
Yeah, it's almost like a subconscious, like subliminal messages that get our kids pick up on by the way we live. So they're actually watching you and they learn a lot more about character that way. I'm passionate about that.
That's the field I work with the subconscious mind a lot. That's the field I dabble
That's
in.
interesting. So you should be talking about this, not me.
I mentor children just in my business about this part of the mind, and I help to simplify it for them. But when you're age 0 to 6, Jess, you're a walking theta brainwave robot. So if you're picking up on programs from school, parents, friends of friends, everything, and then when that child grows up, they live out that program. So I know for a lot of families, alcohol and smoking and eating junk food's a big one. So if little Johnny is 0 to 6 and all he saw on a repetitive level was parents smoking, eating and shit food, well, that records in his subconscious mind as a safe card to play. So little Johnny's going to grow up and he's going to find a tribe, because we're pack animals, of a smoking, drinking, and who knows what else tribe, because mum and dad did it. So it's safe. I want to bomb mum and dad, so I'm just going to go and do these things because that's how mum and dad dealt with their stress. Like they mirror, mimic, and copy us.
That is so challenging to me. That is so challenging to me. Like the amount of times I'm on my phone when my kid's trying to talk to me. Like what kind of message am I sending?
Yeah, it's like they're sponges. So whatever we do now between 0 6 and then from 6 to 10, 10 to 15 is what they're going to do. They're going to do what we do because,
Yeah.
but then that's why I said to you earlier about little Johnny having a teacher tell him what's right from wrong and then have mum and dad tell him a completely different thing. That it's like a neurological shutdown of like the mind's just scanning for safe things to play. So he's at school a lot. So he's probably going to go the way of the teacher because that part of the mind records 9 million pieces of information per second. That repetitive content will be played out from the teacher, not from mum and dad on a subconscious level. Yeah. Because they're there longer, right?
What a challenge to parents.
Yes. If you learn about this part of the mind and know how to sort of reshape it, reprogram it, then you're probably not going to send your kid to school if you know about this part of the mind and how easy it is to program it. And if you look at the last 4 years, if you look at your TV shows, you look at the news and that, you can see how this is done on a subconscious subliminal message level. Because what they've done is they want to develop a society full of people pleasers, right? So if they could put a stat up and say that 90% of people took their first experiment, if you're not aware of how this part of the mind works and you're a people pleaser and you want to fit in and go along and get along, and you see 90% of people have had their first experiment, you're going to go that way because every Tom, Dick, and Harry's got it, and you're going to look around and go, oh, you're uncomfortable, you're unfamiliar, you're in a spot that you don't really want to be in because your programming is of you need to play safe, you need to fit in. These people that orchestrate this part of the mind, Jess, they know exactly what they're doing and they have their little stuff going on. It's happening in the schools too. Like the same people that told you to take your first medical experiment are the same people running your schools.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Like this idea of fitting in, hey, like conformity is so powerful.
It is.
It's another thing through COVID. It's like amazing to me how people just don't want to be the different one.
But if you have an understanding of the programming behind it, it's very easy to have a bit of compassion for those people because they're just being mind controlled.
Yeah.
And not in a way of having the hypnotist up there having you cluck like a chicken. This is just done through the TV screen. That's all it's done.
TV screen.
If they can control the repetitive content of what you hear and what you see, they've got you and they'll make you do anything. They can make you cluck like a chicken and they can make you take a medical experiment and blast yourself off the planet.
So interesting.
Very.
I don't want my kids to fit in. That's the thing. Like everyone's like, but homeschools are a bit weird. Like they're a bit strange. I'm like, okay, but I don't really want them to fit in.
No.
I'd like them to be strange, actually. I'd like them to be considered strange. Then I've done my job.
Correct.
That means they think differently.
Very much so. So, Jess, to wrap things up, if there's a family right now listening to this and they're like, they've just had a light bulb moment. Oh, there's alternative things out here. There's someone that can help me get set up, get organized, get things going. What would be your advice to that family to take their first step onto the homeschooling journey path?
Yeah, I love talking to families. I'm always here for a chat. So my email is jess@homeschoolassist.com.au, or one word, homeschoolassist.com.au. And we can just organize a chat and talk through how it works for your family. There's no one way. So as I said, it's just better to talk to families and get to know them and what they need and meet them where they're at.
Awesome. And just say there's a family in the Northern Territory. Are you able to accommodate?
Yep.
Cool. Awesome.
Yep. We can make it happen. I don't guarantee I can find a teacher for you in remote Northern Territory, but there will be something we can do for you for sure.
Awesome. So you can help anyone and everyone in Australia right now listening and watching. Awesome.
Yep.
Just going to double check that one.
As long as you're in Australia.
Jess, that was an awesome chat. Thank you so much for jumping on.
You
have to jump back on soon.
Yeah, I feel like I rambled so much.
That's okay. Jess, thank you so much. This has been
Thanks, Nathan.
No worries. It's been the Breaking Free podcast. I'll talk to you guys again soon. And if you are someone that's only just watching this now, please reach out to me if you have an alternative system or you're a parent, teacher, student, principal, whatever you are in the system. You have a story worth sharing. I am putting together a documentary, The 15-Year-Old. Yes, this 15-year-old is awesome with filming and producing and editing. And if you also know of anyone, Jess, even you know of anyone that's got some filming or some editing or some producing or some graphic design or something to do with this documentary and they're young and passionate, please send them my way and they can help be part of this team to bring this documentary out into the world. So yeah, reach out to me, reach out to Jess, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. Cheers.